and welcome to Shea Honey, the podcast featuring women who've made creative career change. In today's episode, I'm talking to Hannah Kirkbride, a user researcher who left her salaried job to go freelance. Hannah, welcome to the Shea Honey podcast, and thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thanks so much. Yeah, so happy to be here and finally meet you.
Let's begin by hearing about your original job. So tell us what that was and how you got into it in the first place.
Of course. So I work as a user researcher in the world of product design. So what that is, if people don't know, it's part of the design process. Whenever you're designing anything, you'll take it out to people, you'll get them to try it, maybe give you some feedback on what it's like, and then feed that back into the design process. So yeah, that was my job. I was kind of speaking to people, interviewing them, asking them about how they found using the products we were developing, and then feeding that information back to the design team to tell them how to make it better.
And how did you get into that? Did you study design at a university?
So in school, I really loved maths and art. And I was trying to find a way to kind of combine those two passions. And I was a bit stuck. I kind of instantly thought about maybe architecture is a good idea. I ended up doing a placement in that and realized it wasn't for me. And then I was actually flicking through a university prospectus, just going through the pages, trying to find, okay, which courses ask for maths and art? And then I just stumbled across this course called Product Design Engineering, which I'd never heard of, didn't know this was a job that you could do, that you could be a designer. It just sounded really appealing. It sounded like a great way to combine both my passion for maths and my interest in art. So I went for it and I studied at Glasgow University. I studied product design engineering and I did really love it. It's a great course, had a great time. And after that, I got a job as a design engineer at Dyson. So big name, people will have heard of it, especially in the UK, but it's kind of global. So I was designing stuff like their hairdryer. I worked in the hair care innovation team. So that was kind of my first job. I felt so lucky to have found a job at a big company like that as a graduate. So yeah, that was my path into the job.
Great. And so you work for your user design company for how long?
So I worked at Dyson for 3 years as a design engineer. So it was a bit different to what I'm doing now. Yeah, I'll explain kind of my path from there to what I do currently. But the course I studied at university was very like user centric, user focused. So it was all about how can we use design to solve problems for people, and using that user research process I've spoken about. So taking prototypes out to people, asking them for their feedback and their input on the design process, and then ideating. So coming up with like, okay, so we've spoken to this person who has this problem. How can we create a product that helps to solve it? And then my job I landed with at Dyson was quite the other end of the design process. So it was about like designing for manufacture and like later stages, which to be honest, I didn't love. And I was a bit like, oh, this isn't what I thought I wanted to do. I managed to make my way into the innovation team there and started to do more of the stuff that I enjoyed. So the research element of it. So I was kind of running user studies with people, employees in the office, and was getting them to test out the prototypes that we were making. And kind of got into that was my path into it. I love working with people.
Yeah.
And I felt sometimes like especially the later stage process of design was quite like you'd work by yourself, you'd work alone. It wasn't very like you weren't really spending much time with people. So I wove my way into the user research side, which I'm currently in. And then I moved from there to LV, which is a company who make breast pumps. They're a female health company.
Yeah.
And I spent 3 years working there as solely a user researcher now. So I'd kind of decided this is the area that I prefer the most about design. And this is where I'm going to kind of hopefully just focus my career. So yeah, 6 years in total, kind of, but I had a bit of a wiggly path into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And when and how did you know it was time to start to look for a bit of a change in the way that you were working?
Um, I think maybe middle of last year, I started to just feel really drained at the end of every work day. I did really love my job before that, so it came as a bit of a shock, but I just didn't really have any energy at the end of the day. I would come home, I would be like, okay, I need to try and find some energy to make dinner. I'm gonna sit on the sofa and watch TV. I kind of just felt a bit stagnated and a bit stuck. And I was, yeah, I don't think I really realized, and it did take my partner to be like, you're not happy, you need to make some sort of change. It's funny how someone like looking from the outside in can sometimes notice stuff
Yeah.
like this a bit
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I did for a while. I was like, okay, it takes me a while to leave a job. So I was like, okay, what can I do in the job that I have to make me enjoy the work that I'm doing more? So I tried to do that for a while. Eventually realized that nothing I'd tried to do had made any difference. And I was like, okay, right, what could I do? I'll start applying for other jobs. And in the application process, I kind of realized I don't want to do any of these
Mhm.
jobs I'm applying for. I wasn't excited about any of them. And what became really kind of clear to me, it was through that application process, I guess, that I realized what was important to me and what I needed to do next. Um, so yeah, one of the big things that was really important to me was having a job that allowed like freedom and flexibility. And a lot of the places that I applied for would say like they had flexible working as a bit of a buzzword, but
Mm.
when you kind of dug into it, you'd realize actually this isn't really flexible at all. So um, then I took a bit of a step back and thought, right, if flexibility and freedom is really important, how can I get more of that? And that's when I thought, well, I'll try going self-employed.
Mm. Great. And did you know people in your industry who were already working as self-employed and doing the similar kind of job to what you were hoping to do?
Yeah, so I had one friend who was really influential on me. My friend Sophie, she did exactly the same role as me, so user research in
Yeah.
design, and she'd gone self-employed, and she just seemed to be living the dream, to be honest. She was like doing all this traveling, working for all these companies, and she gave me a lot of confidence that it was
Yes.
possible.
Yeah.
I think people often say if you can't see it, you can't believe it, and yeah, that I think seeing that someone had done it before me was a real confidence booster that
Yeah.
made me think it was possible.
And how long did it take you then to formulate your escape plan to get to the point of being self-employed?
Probably took me, I think I was quite quick in it. And in hindsight, I'm wondering whether I'm gonna look back and think, kind of wish I'd been a bit more strategic about it. We'll see. But I think it was maybe 4 or so months I decided this is what I'm going to do. And I spent a bit of time tracking like the contract work that would be available if I was to be
Yeah.
like a contractor. Saw there was quite a lot of that coming up. I was like logging the job postings I saw. That gave me confidence there was work available. I started having like coffee meetups with people on LinkedIn and saying like, oh, you're freelance in my industry, I'd love to chat to you. They seem to be working, making it work. That gave me a lot of confidence. And then just did things like posting, being a bit more visual on LinkedIn, writing a Substack, trying to create a bit more online visibility because I basically had none of that. I didn't post anywhere. And I knew that would be quite key for being self-employed is
Mm.
having some sort of online visibility. So once I'd done those things, I also spent a bit of time looking at my finances and saving, which is something I like to do when I become unhappy in a job. I think it's a good idea to then start putting some money
Yeah.
away to kind of plan your exit strategy. Um, Once I'd done those things, I thought I'm just going to hand in my notice and just kind of take a leap of faith because I could think about this thing forever and just not do it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's what I did. I don't know whether I'm gonna regret that later down the line because I'm still in the early stages, but we'll see.
And so you've just, I think in the last few weeks, you've just kind of officially become freelance, haven't you? Because I think you've been away on holiday, and you've come back, and now you're sort of living the freelance life. And have the benefits of that started to manifest themselves for you already?
Yeah, so one big benefit that you mentioned, I guess, was being able to take a big holiday. I finished my job, I took 3 weeks out, and it's quite hard in most jobs, I think, to take a holiday that's longer than 2 weeks. So that was amazing to have a properly long holiday. I think the last 3 years have been full on for a lot of people with the pandemic and all of the stress of that. So that was a real first benefit, and one of the big things I'm hoping to do more of by being self-employed is having more time to travel and take longer breaks. And I also really am hopeful that I'll be able to have a bit more of a multifaceted career. So although I'm excited about research and still continuing that, I'm quite excited about having other arms of my career and doing lots of different things, maybe involving a bit more creativity into what I do, because I mentioned at the start, I loved art in school, and I've kind of lost quite a lot of that creativity in the job that I do. So I've started going to an oil painting course on a Tuesday afternoon, which is something I couldn't do if I was in a full-time job, which I'm loving. I've started writing a Substack newsletter, which writing is something I've never done before. I never thought I was a writer. But I'm really loving that and surprised myself, like, oh, this, and it feels quite creative as well, that act of writing. I never thought of writing as a creative thing. I don't know why. I guess in school I used to get a bit bogged down by like having to do all these essays and stuff. So yeah, there's quite a few things. I feel much more energized and excited by a lot of things. So I'd say that's a big benefit that's manifested quickly.
And have you had any moments of regret or panic so far?
A lot of moments of panic, less so regret, I would say. On the regret piece, I think I just know I want to give it a go, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I'll hopefully just get another permanent role somewhere. So I know I'm not going to regret trying effectively, and I keep reminding myself that. So there's not any regret there, but there's a lot of panic or fear and self-doubt, like, am I going to be able to make this work? The economic climate right now is not great. Was this the best time to do this, to go alone, to be self-employed? Am I going to find any work? Is this going to work out? Lots of like spiraling questions like that I have to kind of make sure don't take over.
Yeah. Do you think the writing maybe helps a little bit with dealing with some of those thoughts?
Yeah, you know what? I've never thought about that, but yeah, that definitely does help to just get your thoughts out there, put them on a page, and then especially when other people respond like, oh yeah, I've totally experienced that, or like they're on the other side of it looking back, like I remember feeling that way. It's quite comforting.
Yeah, because I think I read your Substack post yesterday, and you were writing about things that in your own head you kind of within the past maybe thought weren't our thing. And I think you and I both had a conversation that because it struck a chord with me, that when I was younger, my parents and my sort of family would always go, well, you're the one that's good at maths, and my brother was kind of like, oh, you're good at English. And for some reason that kind of put something in my head that like writing wasn't really a thing that I did, because numbers were my thing, even though I'm not totally sure that was true either. But and that kind of, I guess, slightly put me off doing a lot of written things, because I just did what I had to do for school and then didn't really do English after GCSE. And I think you said that you kind of had a similar experience. And so what kind of brought you to Substack, and how did you kind of find writing? I'm interested in that.
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day. I think what brought me to it was Jessica DeFino is a writer who I love, who writes about beauty culture and the beauty industry, and basically how it's all just built on making women feel terrible about themselves to sell them stuff that they don't need.
Yeah.
And I just like, this resonated so much with me. And she was writing on Substack and she had paid tier, and I was like, you know what, this is something I really want to support, because I feel like we need this writing in the world. There's so much writing in magazines that tells you the opposite and is selling all these products and making women feel terrible about the way they look. So she got me into Substack, and then I did a female confidence course called Upfront, and it was all about how building a writing habit can be really beneficial to your career. Publishing stuff online can increase your visibility, your confidence, can lead to loads of exciting opportunities. And how women are often feel like they don't have anything interesting to say, or they don't have the confidence, they don't think they feel like everyone's said it better than them before, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So that really inspired me. I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to write something. And I also knew I was hoping to go freelance or self-employed, so I thought it'll probably help in that area too. And I was surprised because, like you said, I was like more mathematical in school. English wasn't really my subject. And I've never really done any writing, and I was so surprised by how much I enjoyed the
Yeah.
process. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you? How did you get into it?
It's very similar, to be honest, that I hadn't really ever done any writing, and Emma Gannon was the person who got me into Substack. I think I'd read a couple of her books and then followed her on Instagram, and then kind of followed her over to Substack when she started it. And similar to what you describe, she added a paid level, and I just felt so strongly about what I was reading and that I enjoyed it and it was worth paying a bit of money for, that I subscribed to her. And then I guess after that I started to kind of poke around Substack and realize that there was so much more to it than just one person's newsletter. And then in the summer, once I'd given up my full-time job, I had a bit of time, and I started sort of looking at it a bit more. I think that's when I found your Substack page, actually, and just became inspired by reading lots of other people's work, that maybe that was something I could do, and maybe having a go at writing it wasn't the worst thing in the world, and probably nobody I knew was going to be looking at it to start with, because I wasn't really going to tell them about it.
Yeah.
Which I didn't to start with. I didn't really tell anyone that I was doing it. I just kind of started it and thought I'll just see what happens. And then gradually I've kind of become a bit more confident about what I'm doing, and shared it a little bit more widely. But yeah, like you, just I love getting my thoughts down in writing. There's something really cathartic about it, I think. And I think it helps to work through thoughts and problems sometimes, or whether that's work related stuff or just stuff going on in my head, and just the connections made with other people just seem really, really positive and really lovely. So far it's been a really nice place just to kind of write some stuff, meet some people, and see where it goes. I think, this podcast has come out of that essentially. It was only through starting the Substack and starting to tell my story that I realized that it was resonating with other people who'd not necessarily who were in exactly the same situation, but there were elements of the situation that they associated with, and just thinking that other people had a story to tell, so let's try and find a way of sharing it. So and I think it's really interesting how one creative thing leads to a different creative thing, and actually all those creative things then start to come together, and they're not separate. So anyway, that we've sidetracked a little bit, but I think it's really interesting talking about how we've come to that. Back to your going freelance, were your family and friends supportive of your decision, and were any of them confused or surprised that you wanted to suddenly make this change?
I'd say my family and friends were really supportive. My partner's a huge support for me. He's always kind of giving me that self-belief that sometimes I don't have. So I'll be like, oh, I don't know if I'll be able to make it work, and I don't know if I'm experienced enough to be self-employed. And he kind of just said to me so many times, "You're so good at what you do, and you can definitely do it." And think of all the people out there who are much less experienced than you, who are going for it and making it work, and just like almost tricking people. Like
Yeah.
there's probably loads of people out there who are kind of just winging their way successfully.
Yeah.
You've got all this experience, you can definitely do it. So he was really instrumental in building that confidence. Um, my dad was also, I thought when I told him, he would be a bit kind of almost worried or concerned, leaving that secure job with a big company, trying to go it alone. But I was really surprised by his response because he'd done a similar thing. I hadn't even realized. It's funny how we pay no interest in our parents' careers when we're young. But he'd done a similar thing to me, and had gone self-employed or gone contractor in his job at a similar time in his life, and he said he didn't regret it at all, and he thought I could make a great go of it. So yeah, I was a bit nervous telling people that they were going to be a bit worried for me. You're losing job security. Is it going to work? But almost everyone in my life has been really supportive. Even my old job, who I left, they were all like, "Yeah, we're really rooting for you. We hope you can make it work. Like, this is great. You're giving it a go." So, yeah, it was really lovely.
That's particularly nice that your old colleagues and your old workplace supported it as well. And do you think will there be some work that possibly comes from that direction occasionally, do you think?
Yeah, I'm hopeful there might be. We'll see, but definitely, I think it's good to leave a job with a good relationship, so that's an option.
Definitely. I think that's really important. And I felt very similar when I left my job, that I wanted to leave on a real positive, and kind of when I was feeling like I was still doing a good job and hadn't become so kind of grumpy about it, that
Yeah,
that the unhappiness was maybe shown in my work. And I think, yeah, having good relationships with colleagues that you've left is always a really positive thing going forward. So yeah, that's
definitely.
really good. And just touching back to what you said about having confidence to do the thing, do you think that's something that as women we're not as good at compared with men?
Yeah, so I love thinking about like gender socialization. I find it so fascinating. Something I struggle with is being like, all women are like this and
Yes,
all men are like this,
absolutely.
because there's so many differences, isn't there, between one woman to the next. And but I do think that women are socialized to be take less risks, to be more kind of safe in their decision making, perhaps to be more like nurturing and caring for others, rather than like, I'm going for this, I'm
Mm.
doing this for me, I'm taking this big leap. um and I think a lot of women do struggle with confidence. I've been on quite a journey with confidence myself, and I mentioned that upfront
Yeah.
female confidence course. It's run by Lauren Curry, if anyone's interested to check it out. So I've done that course. I've done a coaching course called She Rises with Confidence. So the fact that there are so many of these like female confidence like coaching courses out there kind of says it all, really.
Mm.
Um, I've also read an amazing book that I'd recommend called Playing Big by Tara Moore, and that's all about how exactly what we've spoken about, I guess, that women are often more risk averse.
Mm.
They don't want to take as many risks. They kind of play small in their life. So her book is amazing, is an amazing way to explore how we can kind of take more risks and play big, go for big things, take big leaps. And that was really inspiring to me.
They all sound really great. After this, I'm going to get the links to all of those so I can put them in the podcast show notes, because I think other people
Yeah,
might be interested in checking out the book and the courses as well that you've done.
definitely.
Um, we've touched on this quite a bit already, but has going freelance enabled you to live a more creative life so far, do you think?
Yeah, I would say resoundingly yes. I think the big thing was I was feeling so drained in my job, and I just didn't have any energy for anything else, really. It was taking up, I think work's tiring in itself, but when you're not feeling energized about that work that you do, it's even more tiring. So you come home from the work day and you're just so drained, and you just don't have the energy to do anything creative. And creativity, I think, does take energy. So since leaving, I've just felt so full of ideas, possibilities. I know you've spoken about this as well, about feeling like an ideas volcano, and I can still relate to that. This is what it feels like. I think once you free up yourself to have a bit more space, you'll be surprised by how many ideas come to you
Yeah.
and how much excitement you have.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I find myself, I kind of almost look forward to waking up in the morning and seeing what the day brings in terms of ideas and thoughts, and I never really used to feel like that when I was going to my regular day job. It was kind of like, oh God, can I stay in bed a little bit longer? But now I've just, yeah, I have the energy, physical energy, but also I guess the mental energy to kind of want to see what the day holds. And yeah, it's great,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it is great. It's amazing. Yeah, it's hard, I guess, because I think you either have a lot of time in the life, you either have money or you have time.
Yes.
So although I've got a lot of time at the minute, financially, I'm not doing so well. I'm not in that
Yeah.
paid job. So I think it's somehow finding a balance so you're
Yeah.
financially stable and you have the time to come up with these ideas and have
Yeah.
the space to be creative. And hopefully I'll find that balance soon.
I'm sure you will. And I think perhaps what we underestimate when we're thinking about taking a risk like this is how much, kind of, when you're in a situation that necessitates something, you find a way, don't you? You find a way to
Yeah.
kind of make it work. Whereas perhaps when that necessity isn't there, it, the ideas don't need to come, they don't need to flow in the same way. So maybe
So
there's a little bit of
true.
that going on, I don't know. But it'd be really interesting to see, I guess, to reflect back on this conversation in a year or so and kind of see where you feel you're kind of at with it, and whether what you'd hoped for is kind of working out. And I'm sure it will be. I have every
Yeah.
confidence that what you're doing is probably the right thing, and you're going to make it work really well. My final question is, do you have any advice for somebody listening who might be considering making a career change and perhaps is feeling a little bit unsure about what to do?
Yeah, great question. I guess I'll start any advice with a caveat that I'm still very early on into this transition. I'm a couple of weeks in and I don't have any paid work as a freelancer yet. So I don't feel like I can be like the gospel of here's how to make it work and this is the solution. So big caveat there. But I would say that there's loads of people out there making like a more creative or non-traditional kind of career work, and the more you look around the more you find those people. And I think that just gave me a huge amount of confidence to be like, this is possible. Look at all these people who are making it work. If they can do it, hopefully I can too. And I think having that confidence and belief in yourself is so important. Finding like community connections who you can speak to and learn from, people who are going to kind of like fly your flag and cheer you on along the way. I think those things are super important when you're taking a big risk or a big leap like
Mm.
this. Yeah, I think that would be my main advice.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for giving up your time to talk to me today and share your journey with the listeners. And I wish you so much success, happiness and creativity in your new freelance life. And I'm going to be following your Substack with so much interest over the coming months. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Hannah. It's been great. It's amazing to finally meet you after reading your amazing Substack for so long. I feel like I know you so well already, but I'll be following on along to your journey closely too.
Thank you so much.
That was Hannah Kirkbride talking to Hannah Ash on the Shay Hanny podcast. Hannah has a Substack page called The Research Objective where you can follow her freelance career journey. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to sharing the next one with you very soon.